From fifth-round slide to franchise savior, Shedeur Sanders has the entire NFL talking.
It's just part of it. You know, there's entertainers and there's competitors. And I totally understand that. My job is to compete.
Whether it's Dylan throwing shade at him, or Micah Parsons critiquing his ball-patting habits, or Eric Dickerson dropping conspiracy bombshells about league collusion.
That the NFL told other, don't draft him. Do not draft him. We're gonna make an example out of him.
Everyone's got something to say about Coach Prime's son, so let's break it down. Dillon Gabriel. The most manufactured controversy of the 2025 preseason erupted when Browns rookie quarterback Dillon Gabriel made what many interpreted as a not-so-subtle jab at his teammate Shedeur Sanders. During a halftime interview with NFL Network's Aditi Kinkhabwala on August 16, 2025, Gabriel was asked about tuning out the noise surrounding Cleveland's chaotic four-way quarterback competition. His response?
It's just part of it. You know, there's entertainers and there's competitors. And I totally understand that. My job is to compete.
The internet immediately exploded with speculation that Gabriel was taking a direct shot at Sanders, whose flashy personality and high-profile background made him an easy target for the entertainer label. Social media went into overdrive with posts calling Gabriel's comment everything from disgraceful to a calculated attempt to undermine a teammate. But here's where the story gets interesting. Gabriel quickly clarified his intentions during his post-game press conference.
First off, I'm all about our team. You know what I mean? And each other. I would never make that, and I've said it before, that's why it's interesting. You know, all you in this room are entertainers, and you have a job to do, and I respect it, right? And I'm a competitor, so I have a job to do as well.
He explained, making it clear he was referring to the media, not his quarterback room rival. The clarification came too late to stop the viral spread of the controversy, but Sanders himself eventually addressed it directly, revealing that Gabriel had approached him privately to set the record straight. The whole incident perfectly encapsulated the intense scrutiny surrounding Sanders and how even innocent comments could be twisted into quarterback controversy gold. While Gabriel's comments sparked teammate tensions, another Browns defensive back became Sanders' most visible supporter and created one of the season's most memorable moments. Tony Brown, Cleveland Browns cornerback. Tony Brown became the breakout star of Shedeur Sanders' viral NFL debut entrance, and his explanation for why he supported the rookie quarterback revealed the deep respect he held for the Sanders family legacy. On August 14, 2025, during an NFL Network interview, Brown opened up about the spiritual calling he felt to mentor Sanders.
I have the highest level of respect for what his father's done with his children and for what his father brought to the NFL, to the game of football.
Brown explained, his admiration for Deion Sanders clearly influencing his relationship with the son. The veteran defensive back described feeling an immediate connection with Sanders from their first meeting, telling him directly.
Since the first day I met him, like I told him, hey, I want to be the guy that you can go to whenever, you know, with anything, bro.
But it was Brown's explanation of their now famous pregame entrance that really struck a chord. Carrying a bamboo box staff while pulling a massive speaker playing Sanders' unreleased rap music, Brown saw it as more than just theatrical flair. It's just a spiritual thing for me. I believe it's a calling to help young men like Shedeur, to help guide them, he said, framing his support as part of a higher purpose. The entrance helped Sanders channel that prime time energy before his debut performance against the Carolina Panthers, where he completed 14 of 23 passes for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns, drawing 10.2 million viewers, the most watched NFL Network preseason game in a decade. From Brown's teammates to former NFL stars, the opinions on Sanders varied wildly. One Hall of Fame running back dropped perhaps the most explosive theory of all, Eric Dickerson. Hall of Fame running back Eric Dickerson dropped an absolute bombshell that had the entire NFL world shook to its core. On August 21st, 2025, during his appearance on the Roggin and Rodney show on AM 570 LA Sports, Dickerson made claims that would make even the wildest conspiracy theorists blush.
And I'll tell you this much here, what I heard from someone that's in the NFL, that the NFL told other, don't draft him. Do not draft him. We're gonna make an example out of him.
Now hold up, wait a minute. Did the Rams legend just accuse the entire National Football League of orchestrating a coordinated attack on Deion Sanders' son? According to Dickerson, this came from what he called a very good source, and the plan was reportedly to have Sanders go completely undrafted to teach him and his famous father a lesson about humility. But here's where it gets even juicier. Dickerson claimed that so allegedly an unnamed intervention forced Cleveland's hand at pick 144. Whether you believe this explosive theory or not, it certainly added fuel to the fire surrounding Sanders' dramatic slide from projected top 10 pick to 5th round selection, costing him potentially millions in guaranteed money and sparking debates that continue to rage today. But speaking of Cowboy stars having strong opinions about Sanders, one defender wasn't buying into the sympathy train, Micah Parsons. Dallas Cowboys superstar linebacker Micah Parsons decided to school some folks on quarterback fundamentals, and Shedeur Sanders became his unwitting student. Back on April 5th, 2025, Parsons took to social media with some technical criticism that had Sanders' supporters seeing red. The issue, Sanders' habit of patting the football before throwing, which Parsons argued could be the difference between completing a pass and eating a sack in the NFL. You realize that pat on the ball can be difference between a sack or a throwaway completion, Parsons wrote, speaking from his perspective as one of the league's most feared pass rushers. When New York Giants receiver Darius Slayton jumped in to defend Sanders by comparing his ball patting to Tom Brady's mechanics, Parsons wasn't having any of it. Comparing the greatest quarterback ever to Sanders is why I'll never entertain a football conversation with you. Like, what are we doing here? He fired back. This social media exchange quickly escalated into a full-blown family affair when Deion Sanders himself entered the chat, posting, "Can we all get along?" and emphasizing Sanders with a capital S, we earned that. Later, when Sanders' draft slide became reality, Parsons tried to provide some perspective, comparing it to Lamar Jackson's fall to pick 32 in 2018. Lamar Jackson, arguably one of the greatest QBs in college football, ever fell to pick 32. Why is everyone in uproar about Shedeur? He posted, suggesting such slides happen regularly. However, not everyone in the quarterback fraternity was throwing analytical critiques around. Derek Carr. Former Pro Bowl quarterback Derek Carr stepped into his analyst role and delivered some pointed criticism that had Cleveland Browns fans scratching their heads. On August 23, 2025, during the Browns' preseason finale against the Los Angeles Rams, Carr was watching live as Shedeur Sanders got benched with just over 2 minutes remaining and Cleveland trailing 17-16. What should have been Sanders' moment to shine in a clutch 2-minute drill was instead handed to Tyler Huntley, a move that had Carr immediately questioning the decision on social media. "I need to understand why we don't get to see it, Shedeur Sanders run this 2-minute drill. Wouldn't you want to see your young QB operate in this situation?" Carr posted in real time, his frustration evident. The former Raiders and Saints signal caller made a compelling point. Here was Sanders, buried as the 4th-string quarterback, getting what might be his last opportunity for meaningful reps all season, and Cleveland pulled the plug right when the lights got brightest. When fans pointed out Sanders' struggles in the game, completing just 3 of 6 passes for 14 yards while taking 5 sacks, Carr acknowledged the performance but emphasized the bigger picture. "I can understand that, but this is potentially, you never know, his last time at reps all year," he responded, highlighting the developmental importance of high-pressure situations for young quarterbacks. While Carr was questioning coaching decisions, another quarterback was dealing with his own Sanders-related controversy. Malik Nabers. New York Giants star receiver Malik Nabers unleashed one of the most passionate defenses of Shedeur Sanders you'll ever hear, and he wasn't holding back any punches when it came to criticizing the NFL's treatment of his friend. During a February 2025 interview on SiriusXM NFL Radio, Nabers laid out exactly why he thought Sanders was special. "I've been watching him a long time. He has another crazy arm talent. He gives his guys the opportunity to go make plays. He's not scared and he wants to win, and he's a leader," Nabers said, his admiration clear as day. But it was after Sanders' shocking draft slide that Nabers really let his feelings be known. Appearing on the 7 p.m. in Brooklyn podcast with Carmelo Anthony in May 2025, Nabers went scorched earth on the entire league. "You don't do something like that to somebody like that. You can't knock his talent. I heard a lot of things about he takes unnecessary sacks. He had a bad O-line. He threw 70% with a bad O-line." Nabers fired back at critics, defending Sanders' college performance behind Colorado's porous offensive line. He wasn't finished though, launching into a cultural critique that had everyone talking. "We gotta stop making feelings with how people play linger. Yeah, he might have some things that he might say on camera off the field that don't have to do with how he plays football. How he carries himself is all about how his dad raised him." The Giants receiver made it personal, arguing that Sanders was being punished for his authentic personality rather than evaluated purely on football merit. His emotional plea resonated with fans who saw Sanders' slide as unfair treatment of a talented player. Another quarterback who experienced the pre-draft hype alongside Sanders had his own perspective on the situation. Cam Ward. Miami Dolphins quarterback Cam Ward, the #1 overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, shared a unique perspective on Shedeur Sanders' journey, one that came from their friendship forged during months of pre-draft workouts and shared expectations. During Super Bowl week in February 2025, Ward addressed the media's attempts to create a rivalry between the two top quarterback prospects. "It's cool that we're close because if we weren't, the media would try to pin us against each other. We've been working out together, pushing each other. I'm not trying to compete against him in that way. It's about us both getting better, Ward explained, showing the genuine respect between the two signal callers. When Sanders' draft slide became reality, Ward didn't hesitate to defend his friend during his introductory press conference with the Titans on April 25, 2025. It is surprising because he's a good quarterback. He doesn't get a lot of the credit that he deserves, especially the plays that he made in Colorado, Ward said, his disappointment evident. The former Miami Hurricane revealed just how close their pre-draft relationship had been. "We thought me and him were going 1 and 2. He was one of the better QBs in the draft." Even months later, as both quarterbacks settled into their respective NFL situations, Ward maintained his support. In an August 2025 interview, he reiterated, "I don't have a rivalry with him. That's my boy. He's been productive wherever he has been every time. When he gets his chance, I know he's going to make the most of it." Ward's consistent backing of Sanders throughout the process showed the genuine friendship between two young quarterbacks navigating the pressures of NFL expectations. While Ward showed unwavering loyalty, one former All-Pro defensive back became Sanders' most vocal media defender, Richard Sherman. Former Seattle Seahawks All-Pro cornerback Richard Sherman emerged as one of Shedeur Sanders' most passionate advocates, and his defense of the young quarterback was both technically sound and emotionally charged. When Sanders' draft slide became reality, Sherman didn't mince words on his podcast. "It's crazy to me that Shedeur Sanders is still on the board. This kid's tape at Colorado was phenomenal. He's got the arm talent, the poise, the decision-making. I don't get why teams are passing on it," Sherman said during the first round, his frustration building as Sanders continued to fall. But it was after Sanders' preseason debut that Sherman really let his analytical skills shine. Following the rookie's impressive performance against the Carolina Panthers, 14 of 23 passes for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns, Sherman took to social media to celebrate. "Wow, at Shedeur Sanders, what a throw. Dime," he posted, highlighting specific throws that caught his defensive eye. Sherman wasn't content to just praise the performance, though. He had bigger issues to address about the treatment Sanders received. "I got a lot of respect for Hash 12. The guy is balling. I don't understand the weird hate Hash 12 gets and that everything matters. It's like they don't want him to succeed," Sherman wrote, calling out what he saw as unfair scrutiny. He even drew comparisons to other rookie quarterbacks, arguing that if Giants first-rounder Jackson Dart had performed similarly, the reaction would have been completely different. When Sanders struggled in his final preseason game against the Rams, Sherman provided context while acknowledging the issues. "Shedeur had a rough one against the Rams, no doubt. 5 sacks, that's not all on him. O-line was a mess. But he's got to learn to get rid of the ball faster. That's coachable." Sherman's technical analysis carried weight, but another former NFL quarterback brought a different perspective to Sanders' development. Dan Orlovsky. ESPN analyst and former NFL quarterback Dan Orlovsky provided some of the most detailed and balanced analysis of Shedeur Sanders, combining praise for his talent with honest critiques of areas needing improvement. Back in March 2025, when Sanders was still projected as a potential top 5 pick, Orlovsky defended him against early criticism. "The tape doesn't lie. Those who think Shedeur Sanders can't play are nuts," he said, showcasing film from Colorado's game against Baylor, where Sanders threw for 341 yards despite playing behind a collapsing pocket. Orlovsky argued that most of Sanders' struggles were due to poor offensive line play and inconsistent receiver routes, not the quarterback's decision-making. When Sanders' draft slide began, Orlovsky urged patience and perspective. "Can we stop having the funeral for Shedeur right now? Can we stop? He didn't get drafted in the first round. He might get drafted in the first 5 picks tonight, and candidly, it could be a better situation for him," he argued, suggesting a day 2 selection might actually benefit the young quarterback. Prior to Sanders' preseason debut, Orlovsky also pushed back against the set-up-to-fail narrative. Will everybody stop with the Shedeur Sanders is being set up to fail narrative? Who do you want to start the game? He asked, logically explaining why Sanders got the start due to injuries to other quarterbacks. After Sanders' impressive debut, Orlovsky was full of praise, appearing on the Pat McAfee show to highlight the performance. "Shedeur Sanders looked comfortable in and out of the huddle. He was pretty aggressive with the football and he played with a lot of confidence. The operation was clean and the decision-making was spot on." However, following Sanders' struggles against the Rams, Orlovsky provided specific technical criticism about persistent issues from college. Orlovsky's balanced approach stood in contrast to another former NFL linebacker who took a much more confrontational stance, Emanuel Acho. Former NFL linebacker Emanuel Acho rode an emotional roller coaster when it came to his evaluation of Shedeur Sanders, swinging from defense to criticism and back to praise as the 2025 season unfolded. Early in the pre-draft process, Acho emerged as one of Sanders' strongest defenders against anonymous coaching criticism. When reports surfaced of Sanders being called arrogant and brash in combine interviews, Acho fired back on FS1's The Facility. "I think Shedeur Sanders' security makes a lot of people insecure. So when Shedeur Sanders comes off as confident, comes comes off as secure, comes off as knowing who he is, you, insecure, dictate his security as something that's an issue, Acho argued, framing Sanders' confidence as a strength rather than a weakness. He drew parallels to Deion Sanders' own bold approach during his 1989 draft process, suggesting the apple didn't fall far from the tree. However, as the draft approached, Acho began raising concerns about Sanders' physical tools. Shedeur Sanders, his arm, I got questions about the strength. Travis Hunter would have people beat and he's waiting for it, Acho said in April, questioning Sanders' arm strength and timing on deep passes. When Sanders' slide became reality, Acho's emotions boiled over. Shedeur Sanders not getting drafted in the first 3 rounds? It's disgusting, he declared, arguing that being selected in the 5th round significantly hurt Sanders' career opportunities. He even suggested Sanders consider returning to college rather than accepting a backup role. But after Sanders' impressive preseason debut, Acho appeared to change his tune once again, posting on social media. If anybody doubts that Shedeur Sanders' game will translate to the NFL, just show them this and shush him up. While Acho was flip-flopping on his Sanders takes, another former NFL star maintained consistent support throughout, LaShawn McCoy. 2-time Super Bowl champion LaShawn McCoy became one of Shedeur Sanders' most vocal supporters, and his confidence in the young quarterback never wavered despite the 5th-round selection. From the moment anonymous coaches started criticizing Sanders during the pre-draft process, McCoy was having none of it. You have a kid who's been successful everywhere he's been, and now you're nitpicking because he's confident? That's what you want in a quarterback, McCoy argued alongside James Jones, dismissing the critics as jealous of Sanders' swagger. When Sanders impressed during the Browns' rookie minicamp in May 2025, McCoy revealed he had inside sources feeding him information. I got my sources, and they told me that he looks like the best player out of the whole camp, and he's a 5th rounder, McCoy claimed, suggesting Sanders was outperforming the other quarterbacks despite his low draft position. The former Eagles running back made a bold prediction that had Browns fans buzzing. If you look at Shedeur Sanders, his mindset ain't to be in no backup role with the Browns. He's in there to start. He's going to take some time, but he's going to start, and he's going to start early this year. McCoy didn't stop there, making perhaps the most audacious comparison possible by linking Sanders to Tom Brady. You've seen his work ethic. Everything that we heard about him is not true. Don't let the jewelry and the music and the swagger fool you. He's a hard worker. The first thing that the head coach said, hey, he's the first one in the building and the last one to leave. Sounds like someone else I know. His name is Brady, McCoy proclaimed, referencing his former Tampa Bay teammates' legendary work ethic. McCoy continued his advocacy throughout the summer, even defending Sanders against minor controversies like speeding tickets. McCoy's unwavering support contrasted sharply with another former NFL veteran who took a more critical analytical approach, Mark Schlereth. 3-time Super Bowl champion Mark Schlereth brought his offensive line expertise to bear on Shedeur Sanders, offering both defense and criticism that reflected his understanding of quarterback protection and pocket dynamics. Early in the pre-draft process, Schlereth stood firmly in Sanders' corner when anonymous coaches began attacking his confidence. A lot of draft evaluators are stupid. Show me a quarterback who's not. Arrogant. Ever sit with a guy who's going to be a star quarterback? Most of them are arrogant. Most of them have a lot of belief in what they do, Schlereth argued on FS1's Breakfast Ball, suggesting that confidence was a prerequisite for elite quarterback play. However, after Sanders' draft slide became reality, Schlereth provided a more nuanced explanation for why it happened. From the talent perspective, he's not a generational talent, so you better ace the intangibles part of the process. And by all accounts, he did not ace the intangible aspect of it, he explained, acknowledging Sanders' talent while recognizing the importance of pre-draft interviews and character evaluation. Schlereth's analysis became particularly pointed when discussing Sanders' preseason struggles, drawing on his personal experience as a Colorado radio analyst during Sanders' college career. When I was coaching up there, I even pulled Dean aside and said, dude, what you're asking guys to do is impossible, Schlereth revealed, referencing conversations he'd had about Colorado's offensive line struggles. He acknowledged the impossible situation Sanders faced in college, but emphasized that pocket presence remained a legitimate concern. His pocket presence is an issue. He holds the ball too long, and that's something he's got to work on. You saw it in the Rams game. 5 sacks, and a lot of it was on him trying to make something happen instead of getting rid of it, Schlereth critiqued, balancing context with accountability. His analysis highlighted the complex reality that while Sanders faced challenging circumstances, he still needed to adapt his decision-making for NFL success. Schlereth's technical critique resonated with another former player who became an advocate for Sanders throughout the process, Keyshawn Johnson. Former #1 overall pick Keyshawn Johnson brought a unique perspective to the Shedeur Sanders discussion, having experienced both the pressures of high draft expectations and the realities of NFL quarterback evaluation. Johnson's support for Sanders began even before the draft, when he defended Deion Sanders' intention to influence his son's destination. That's good. He should step in. He shouldn't surrender any, I don't want to call it power, but advice to anyone, Johnson argued in November 2024, comparing Deion's approach to Eli Manning's successful draft demand in 2004. When pre-draft criticism mounted against Sanders, Johnson provided a cultural analysis that cut to the heart of the issue. You get these coaches that are not accustomed to dealing with or having these conversations with individuals at this position that have a certain snap, crackle, pop to them, Johnson explained on FS1 Speak, suggesting that some evaluators were uncomfortable with Sanders' authentic personality because it didn't fit their traditional quarterback mold. Johnson's confidence in Sanders never wavered, even making bold predictions about his NFL trajectory. You know, the crazy thing is, I am confident it's going to be Shedeur. I don't know when. I don't know if it's the start of the season or 3, 4, 5 games into the season, but before they get to the mid-season mark, he's going to be the starting quarterback, Johnson predicted in May 2025, following Sanders' impressive minicamp performance. When Sanders delivered in his preseason debut, Johnson was vindicated in his assessment. Shedeur Sanders showed why he's a first-round talent in that Panthers game. 14 of 23, 138 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's not a fluke, he declared, emphasizing that Sanders' performance proved his draft slide was misguided. Even when Sanders struggled in his final preseason game, Johnson provided context and maintained his support, attributing the poor showing to offensive line issues and injury concerns rather than fundamental flaws in Sanders' game. Johnson's unwavering faith in Sanders was shared by another Hall of Fame quarterback who understood the challenges of overcoming draft adversity, Kurt Warner. Hall of Fame quarterback Kurt Warner, who famously went undrafted before leading the St. Louis Rams to a Super Bowl championship, brought a unique perspective to Shedeur Sanders' evaluation that combined technical analysis with empathy for late-round selections. Warner's initial assessment of Sanders was overwhelmingly positive, focusing on what he considered the young quarterback's greatest strength. Shedeur may throw the best ball, and what I mean by that is the most catchable, the most accurate ball of all these guys. I love that he can pace the ball. He never throws it hard. He never has to throw through you, Warner praised during a March 2025 appearance on The Joel Klatt Show, highlighting Sanders' touch and accuracy as elite traits. However, Warner also identified areas of concern from his film study, particularly regarding Sanders' pocket presence in challenging situations. I watched some of his tape from the beginning of the year, and I watched the last 4 games. I felt in the last 4 games, Shedeur was very uneasy in the pocket, Warner noted, pointing to specific games where Sanders struggled behind Colorado's struggling offensive line. When Sanders' draft slide became reality, Warner was adamant that the evaluation was wrong. My evaluation was he's the most accurate quarterback I thought in this draft. I really like Shedeur. He wasn't a 5th-round prospect in my opinion, Warner declared on the Jim Rome Show in May 2025, rejecting the notion that Sanders deserved to fall so far. Warner's analysis emphasized Sanders' role as a game winner at both Jackson State and Colorado, arguing that his ability to carry teams through critical moments was being undervalued. During Sanders' preseason struggles, Warner expressed frustration with the Browns' handling of the competition between Sanders and Dillon Gabriel. I was really looking forward to the competition between Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders in last preseason game. A bummer that both didn't have the same ops to make plays. Warner posted on social media, suggesting that unequal opportunities made fair evaluation impossible. While Warner focused on technical analysis and development, one Hall of Famer delivered a scathing indictment of Sanders' entire pre-draft approach. Chris Carter. Speaking on the Fully Loaded podcast on April 28, 2025, Carter didn't just question Sanders' football ability. He attacked everything from his interview style to his fashion choices during the most important job interview of his life. You're going for a job interview. So for his job interview, he was so concerned about what his outfit was, his necklace was over $100,000, Carter began, his disgust evident as he described Sanders' priorities during combine interviews. Carter's breakdown of Sanders' pre-draft failures was methodical and brutal, listing every misstep that cost him millions of dollars. Not working out at the combine, that wasn't the right thing. His interview process, obviously, he could have done a lot better than that. A lot of people left meetings feeling he was very, very entitled, Carter cataloged, building his case that Sanders had sabotaged his own draft stock. But Carter wasn't finished. He dismissed conspiracy theories about NFL collusion while delivering his most damaging assessment of Sanders' physical tools. He doesn't have a big-time arm. He's not a big guy. He's not overly athletic. "He doesn't have superstar qualities," Carter declared, arguing that Sanders lacked the exceptional traits that would justify overlooking character concerns. Carter's final verdict was as harsh as it was direct, estimating that Sanders and his family's approach cost him between $30 and $50 million in guaranteed money. Carter concluded, suggesting that the draft slide served as a necessary reality check for both father and son. His critique extended beyond football to Sanders' overall brand and marketing approach, arguing that the media attention and flashy lifestyle that helped him in college actually hurt his NFL prospects. Carter's devastating critique represented the harshest end of NFL opinion on Sanders, painting a picture of a talented but misguided young quarterback whose own decisions derailed what should have been a lucrative draft experience. Thank you for staying tuned. To enjoy more of such videos, do click on the card showing on the screen.